Two new draft reports have now emerged that have shed some new light on the Birds' plans for round 1, and it sounds like a pass catcher might not be out of the question. Plus, a few more veteran defensive players were added to the trade market, but will the Eagles even make a call? And Howie Roseman spoke today about what it will take to get aggressive in this year's draft. I'm Thomas Mott, this is the Thomas Mott Show. I don't know about you, but it sure seems like most Eagle fans, less than 10 days out from the NFL draft, are focusing on defense for Philadelphia's first-round overall draft pick. From, say, the Walter Nolans of the world to a lot of Eagle fans like, but officially, as of right now, has not had a top 30 visit in Philly, to yesterday, UGA's Malachi Starks getting his call to head to the Novacare complex, be with the Eagles, and maybe be added to the long list of UGA defensive players coming to the Birds. As of today, it sure sounds like 90% of Eagle fans expect defense to be the pick in round 1. Although draft expert Todd McShay's recent take on the Birds' first-round draft pick has me wondering if we might be barking up the wrong tree.
I do think with the Eagles, keep an eye on that Dallas Goedert situation. I could see Mason Taylor.
Ooh, he's my tight end 3. We talked about him this week. Yeah.
I think Mason Taylor could be interesting there.
Not a dissimilar skill set.
LSU tight end Mason Taylor is what draft scouts call a clean prospect. 0 off the field issues, a very steady rise in college football each year, and a dominant pro day, Senior Bowl, and combine performance. And literally in any other draft, Mason Taylor is probably the first overall tight end taken at some point in round 1. This year's draft, though, has Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, and so Taylor, being a great prospect, is still pushed to tight end number 3. Tom McShay is absolutely right. There is a scenario where he's an early second-round draft pick that the Birds trade out of round 1 to get. But obviously, it's a big if because you gotta move Dallas Goedert on night 1 or early on night 2 to make Mason Taylor, let's say, the first selection for Philadelphia. Oh, and during Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni's joint pre-draft press conference today, Sirianni gave us a little hint at what exactly he looks for in a tight end, and Taylor, he fits every single one of these criteria.
As far as just the tight end itself, you're always looking for, you naturally are going to start with, it's kind of like the receiver room. It takes, you don't have to have one guy that fits all, right? You can use different pieces of a guy to help accomplish the job, whether that is in the pass game with speed or change of direction or the ability with the ball in his hand. So again, you're just trying to fill all the spots that you would use for a tight end. But then sometimes you get a tight end that is unique and you haven't used certain things with that tight end before, but you're like, well, this guy can do some receiver stuff or running back stuff or whatever it is. So our job as coaches is to take the players that we have, the talented players that we have, and find ways that make it work.
So long story short, yes, I still think defense is going to be the pick, but if they were to go offense, the only real position right now is tight end, and the only real person that I think would make sense, at least where they're drafting, is Tyler Warren. Now, when looking at the reported top 30 visits, we got a couple of more the past couple of days, bringing the total number as of filming reported prospect trips to Philadelphia up to 24. As shown here by this pretty nice diagram by Eagles Eric on Twitter that has a few notable standouts. First, as mentioned, Philadelphia, 0 tight ends brought in so far, and in fact have now only brought in 2 offensive players the entire pre-draft process. The previously reported UT running back Jaden Blue, and now yesterday's report of Syracuse running back LaQuint Allen also coming to Philadelphia for a workout. Allen is, of course, a day 3 option. He's not going to be taken anywhere close to rounds 1, 2, or 3, but he was a 16-touchdown running back in 2024 for the Orange, and a clear indication that Philadelphia is going to draft a running back at some point in this year's draft. Also worth noting, Philadelphia has only brought in 5 potential first-rounders for visits, the majority of their time spent on the 7 second-rounders you see on your screen, including their most recent offensive visit of West Virginia offensive lineman Wyatt Millam, who's basically a swing tackle, played both the right and left side, and adds a lot of versatility to be had, probably somewhere on day 2. And I think all of this draft news and top 30 visits is showing kind of a pattern forming in Philadelphia right now. A lot of defensive guys, a lot of offensive linemen. The only other offensive players are running backs, 2 of them so far, and a heavy focus on day 2, rounds 2 and 3 prospects. Tells you something. And this was also echoed by Monday morning quarterback Albert Breer earlier this week when he speculated the Eagles don't see this year's class as a, quote, home run group that requires a huge move up in round 1 to get somebody.
How is Howie Roseman going to do it? He's going to do something. The team just won a Super Bowl. Maybe this is the year that, okay, we reset, we recalibrate, we let the young guys take over. Or is this just another, like, Howie sunglasses moment where he goes in and breaks up the draft and you're like, how the hell did that happen?
I think they've always done a good job of, like, picking their spots with that. This isn't a great draft class, or it's not seen as one. And it's seen as one where, you can really make hay at the end of the first round where they're sitting and on the second day. You can find starters there. The way I look at it for the Eagles is like they always find a way to stay loose for the big swing, when it's there to be taken. I just don't know that this is the year where you want to be taking the big swing.
And listen, I totally agree with this. There really isn't a player that I would sell the farm for to go ahead and move up and get, but really kind of all depends on who's actually there in the late 20s to early 30s of round one. And I think Howie today gave us a fantastic breakdown of how he views the top 32 players in this draft and also what it takes to move up in a draft to get a player if they love him.
There's never 32 first-round grades on our board. We don't have 32 first-round grades in this draft. So obviously, it depends on how things go. You go through a lot of hypotheticals. You try to put yourself in any possible position so that you're ready to execute. Just even looking at last year, the guys that we thought were most realistic being available at 22. We feel like we got fortunate to get one of the guys that we didn't have in a lot of the scenarios. So, luck plays a part in it. Obviously, everyone's looking at things differently. Everyone has a different vision for what they're looking for their team. Everyone has a different vision for the particular players that they're looking at, and you just hope that kind of makes sense for your football team. There was opportunities to maybe get aggressive. With that also comes risks, right? All those moves don't always work out, and it's probably more conservative to just stand pat, stay where you are, whether it's with players on your team or during the draft, and kind of see what comes to you. When you trade up in a draft, you got to deal with the consequences of who ends up being there with the slot you move out on. And sometimes you say, man, I could have sat there and got this player. And so you have to deal with that too. For me, I think that being aggressive has always been part of my DNA, and feel fortunate that I have people around me who support that, Coach, Jeffrey, and it allows us to take chances and to try to be aggressive.
And when taking that thought and comparing it to the top 30 visits so far, there are really only two options that if you wanted to trade up, at least so far, that have visited Philadelphia that makes sense. Georgia's Malachi Starks, and of course the edge rusher Donovan Ezeraku. The latter of which, Brian Baldinger, has a great breakdown on why Ezeraku, if he were to be there mid to late 20s or even fall to 32, is probably a very likely pick for Philadelphia.
This Donovan Ezeraku here for Boston College has a lot of traits that transfer to the NFL. Like, he likes to swim inside, but this is what you like right here. Like, his hands on the ground right there. His ability to bend, all right, fluidly, because he's got an array of moves now, all right? It's not just swims. It's not just ability to dip and rip. You watch him come off the edge right here. Like, he's going to spin to win right here. His spin is good. It's really good. It's quick and it's smooth. He's got the hook with the elbow right there. Now, you're not going to spin a lot on the inside at the NFL level and win. You're just not. You're going to get your head taken off. But you don't want to get deeper than the quarterback either. So here he is. He's going to spin once he sees himself getting deeper than the quarterback. Smart. He's a smart guy. He's also a Jersey guy.
And while sure, you might say right now, Thomas, we need safety depth, we need corner depth, because obviously the young edge rusher group is already so stout. Again, I wouldn't argue with that, but I think we all forgotten that at corner, at least so far, there is somebody currently on the roster that the Eagles are very high on who might make taking a corner early in the draft not that big of a necessity. And that, of course, is Eli Ricks, who we remember, Pick 6 Ricks 2 off seasons ago, he was all the rage in the Eagles cornerback room that was notably weaker that time. However, last year, Quinton Mitchell comes in, and Ricks is completely forgotten and never sees the football field. But as Philadelphia reporter Ruben Frank put just the other day, quote, losing Slay, Isaiah Rodgers, and Avonte Maddox, that's a lot in one offseason. It'll take more than just one guy to replace them, and I expect Eli Ricks to be right in the mix. A lot of pressure, but you gotta remember, Pick 6 Ricks, he's just 23 years old. Hopefully he's been studying behind the scenes the past 2 years, and maybe gets his chance this offseason to compete at camp. Definitely worth keeping an eye on. Also worth keeping an eye on is the current trade news that dropped yesterday, both in Miami and also with the New York Giants, as the Dolphins reportedly are shopping veteran cornerback Jalen Ramsey, according to multiple outlets. And while I know anytime a veteran player at a position of need gets immediately linked to Philadelphia, there's A, but no reporting, and B, he's 30 years old. Plus, I think Jalen's comments this past offseason on his former defensive coordinator Vic Fangio pretty much disqualifies him for ever coming to Philadelphia, and if that's not enough to convince you, how about his $18 million a year base salary in 2025? 100% the nail in the coffin. We forget Philadelphia would not give Isaiah Rodgers, who they really liked, $7 million a year. Minnesota gave him. Plus, Darius Slay got $10 million on a one-year deal to the Steelers. And so out on those two and yet in on Jalen Ramsey at $20 million a year, 100% not happening. Don't even think about it. And I think the same can be said for Giants edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeaux, following a report yesterday that he is also on the trade block in New York. Now, Thibodeaux is much younger and much cheaper than Jalen Ramsey, but 5.5 sacks in 2024 leaves a lot to be desired. Plus, I see New York as wanting a pretty penny for such a young defensive end, so will someone give him that during the draft? Probably, but not Howie and the Birds. Staying with the Giants in their draft plans at number 3 overall, and that might be changing ever so slightly after a reported scheduled very late last-minute private workout with Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders. Now, you'd think New York would be out on an early round quarterback due to the Russell Wilson signing less than a month ago, but a private workout this late in the draft process tells me there's a lot of internal disagreement inside Big Blue's war room. Some probably want Sanders and others don't. I think the big problem is they're scared to duplicate the Jane Daniels miss last year, but Sanders going this early is definitely worth noting heading into round 1. And the idea of being early in round 1 is something we've not talked about a lot in Philadelphia, like trading up from 32 into the top 10. It would cost a lot, but I've seen a ton of comments saying, Thomas, what would it take to go from 32 to 6, 7, 8, 9, and not at least mention it. This, for instance, is a great example of what it could cost to go from 32 up to, let's say, 9, where New Orleans sits currently. And it's a pretty steep haul. First this year, second this year, second next year, and third in 2026. Quite the haul. Unlikely the Eagles will do it, but would you if someone were to fall? Now, the other big story, glossed over completely the past couple of days by the national media, was the injury report out of Dallas for Dak Prescott, who, of course, injured his hamstring during their Week 8 game at Atlanta, and reportedly now 5 months removed from the injury, is still not 100%. As he told reporters just yesterday, quote, I'm getting close to where I want to be. I don't want to put a percentage on it. I know we got team activities coming up. I imagine myself being involved in some sort, if not all. Then again, understanding my age and what I've been through, it's about being ready for the fall. I'm not rushing anything, but I'm where I want to be. Now, Dak still has 5 more months until the actual season, as he said, but Cowboys did trade for Joe Milton, perhaps showcasing some concern for re-injury with the aging Prescott. Either way, interesting times in Big D. Now, with less than 10 days to go before the NFL draft, I am curious if you guys have a specific prospect you're really narrowing in on. I think Malachi Starks is kind of the fun name thrown out there because he just got a top 30 visit. He's a safety, position of need, and also a Georgia Bulldog. Is there anybody else that you're like, this is the guy, a realistic option in round 1? Tyler Warren, an edge rusher, Walter Nolan? Let me know down below in the comment section. And of course, make sure to go ahead and subscribe because giving away this signed Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, and Quinyon Mitchell helmet towards the NFL draft sometime, probably next week or a couple days after. Either way, sub for that. I'm Thomas Mott here on a Tuesday. This has been Thomas Mott Show.